Am I in the wrong for promising my son something that I have to break? So my son isn't like the typical boy. Well, he plays football, is athletic, flirts with girls, goes to parties, etc. But he's always been someone that really likes to take care of other people. It started when he was a child. We brought his sister home and he would sleep in her crib with her and take care of her as you would a parent. He wanted to be the one to feed her, play with her, put her to sleep. It was really adorable, but we put a stop to it because it got to the point where she only wanted to be around her brother and didn't care about her parents. She still prefers him, which is embarrassing, but at least she's not calling him dad anymore. He also always is saving animals and bringing them home. We're not big pet people, so we've never had pets before, but he has snuck a kitten in and nursed her in his room before we found out. His best friend has sort of a bad home situation, so he often does his homework for him, even though we tell him not to, and he brings him food that he cooks himself. It does stress me out that he seems to want to mother someone so bad. He always talks about how much he'd love a dog and how he's missing out on important childhood memories by not having one. He's begged us for a dog, but we've said no. While he says he'll care for it completely, we know that's not feasible because he's in school for 9 hours a day, and then he also has sports and extracurriculars. He also has friends that he hangs around, so we hardly see him. Having a dog is a big no. We explained this to him, but he's not happy about it. There is a giant lab that is a stray where we live, and a lot of our neighbors have been feeding and taking care of it. Yesterday, I came home and my son brought it inside, giving it a bath, and is training it with treats. I said no dogs inside, play with him outside, and kick both of them out. Later, my son came in to eat food. The lab was sitting right at the door, waiting for him to come back outside. His sister and him begged me to let them keep the lab, but I said absolutely not. Labs make a lot of mess, and that one has a lot of energy. When my son goes to sleep, he's sad because the lab is still waiting at the door. He says the dog shouldn't be kept outside his whole life. He asks me if the lab is out there by the morning. If he waits outside all night, can I keep it? I decide sure. All night, him and his sister kept checking the door to see if the lab was still there, and it was. But I wasn't worried because I thought that for sure it would be gone by the morning. But it wasn't. He woke up in the morning and opened the door and the lab was still there. Of course they were celebrating keeping their lab, but I had to tell him absolutely not. I only said that because I thought that he wouldn't be outside in the morning. My son said I'm breaking my promise and is upset at me. My daughter has been crying. So am I in the wrong?
Am I wrong for demanding that my girlfriend clear out her escape bank account? I, 50 male, make a very good income as a software developer. I came from a very poor background, had a rough start to my early adulthood years, so I consider myself self-made and very prudent with my finances. I work in a managerial position in a large company and make $200,000 a year. Add that to a good freelance client base and I make enough to provide for myself, my girlfriend, 45 female, and our daughter, 17 female. However, because I came from so little and worked hard, I am prudent about my finances. I have developed strict financial values in that I believe you can be frugal and generous at the same time. I felt like there was no need to marry. I loved my girlfriend and promised that if we broke up, I would be generous and would give her a fair settlement, which I determined at the time of breakup. So the situation now is I think my girlfriend is feeling empty nest anxiety. She is middle-aged too, so a bit of midlife lack of adjustment as well. Because our daughter is mildly autistic, we felt it was best that my girlfriend quit her marketing job and become a stay-at-home mom. However, around 3 years ago, my girlfriend became upset because I felt like I turned out so well because I really had to fight to be able to eat when I was in college. It made me value my education more. So my policy is that when my daughter goes to college next year, her schooling will be paid by loans and scholarships that she'll have to get for herself, and then I'd give her a total nest egg of $1,000 to use however she wanted for the duration of her 4-year college career. My girlfriend is upset because she says that my daughter will be taking on a lot of debt, but I think you need skin in the game. Around that time, my girlfriend started taking on odd jobs babysitting and cleaning the homes of neighbors. She'd be putting money into our account, so I thought that was that. However, my girlfriend fell asleep yesterday afternoon and forgot to put away this notepad, which had grocery lists in the front, but when I got into it, it also showed a lot of to-do lists and just her jotting out plans. I found out that she has $1,900 in what she calls an emergency escape fund and jotted down a reminder to withdraw some of it to put it into our daughter's box. To say I was furious is an understatement. After all of these years of sharing my money with her and supporting her, I could not believe that she is just labeling me as untrustworthy and hiding money from me. I admit I did a little bit of further snooping and was able to log into her account. I screenshotted it and confronted her, saying that she lied to me and made this ugly. So here is my demand. Either she apologizes by moving the money into our shared bank account and closes it, or she needs to think about where she lived the moment our daughter goes off to college and turns 18. And that if my daughter was complicit in stealing from me, then it would come out of her college fund. Am I the asshole for feeling betrayed?
Am I in the wrong for refusing to give up my extra seat for someone else's toddler on a flight that I paid for because I'm fat? I, 34 female, am obese. I'm actively working toward losing weight and I've made progress, but I'm still obese. I was going over to see my brother and his husband for Christmas across the country, and because I'm fat, I booked an extra seat so that everyone could be more comfortable. I know it sucks having to pay for an extra seat, but it is what it is. I know Southwest Airlines has this customer of size policy, but I've had some bad experiences with Southwest even before I was obese, so I wasn't doing all that, and it's mostly my fault I even got fat. Everything goes smoothly from checking into security and boarding, at least at first. This woman comes to my row with a boy who appeared to be about 1 year old. She told me to squeeze into one seat so that her son could sit in the other. She told me, not asked. I told her no and that I paid for the seat for the extra space. She makes a big fuss over it, which then got the flight attendant's attention. She told the flight attendant that I was stealing the seat from her son, then I showed my boarding passes, proving that I, in fact, paid for the extra seat. The flight attendant asked me if I could try to squeeze in, but I said no, that I wanted the extra seat that I paid for. The boy, who the mom said is 18 months old, was supposed to sit in her lap so he could do just that. The flight attendant eventually told the mom to put her son in her lap. I got dirty looks and passive-aggressive remarks from her and the entire flight, and I do feel a little bad because the boy looked hard to control, so am I in the wrong? Am I in the wrong for ghosting my cheating fiance? So, for some context, I, 27 female, dated my ex-fiance Jonathan, 29 male, for 4 years, and we had been engaged for a couple months. It was a good relationship, and I truly thought that I would spend the rest of my life with him, but I guess I was just too naive to see the truth. To keep it short, I found out that he'd been cheating on me with a mutual friend for a couple months, and that group of friends in particular was covering up his affair. They were all acting strange, so I went through his phone and I found out that they had a separate group where they even made fun of me for not realizing. I was furious, and my first impulse was to berate all of them. However, I ended up deciding to just disappear from their lives. Any confrontation was clearly a waste of time with these people. When he went to work the next day, I packed everything I owned, took all the money that I put in our joint account, which was a lot since we were paying for our wedding, we were planning for a good honeymoon, and wanted to buy a house. I blocked them from everywhere, put my accounts on private, changed my number, and I went back to my hometown and stayed with my mom and stepdad. I was so mad that I even left my job right away. I told my friends and family what had happened, and then I decided to go on a big trip with some of the money that I had put in our joint account. I left for 3 months. I had the time of my life and came back home like 2 months ago. I was able to get a job here and I decided to start dating again. It's nothing serious, but I have been seeing this nice guy for about a month. I'm just trying to put my life back on track. Anyway, recently my family and friends are telling me that my ex and our ex-mutual friends are bombarding them with texts on social media. They apparently want to know where I am and are asking how I'm doing, and they're saying what I did was childish and I should just talk to them at least. I have no intention of this. For me, it's a closed phase of my life, and I literally did nothing at all. I just left. They will never see my face again or hear from me, and I told my close circle to just ignore or block them. But am I in the wrong?
My sister is obsessed with Kpop to a degree where it's bad for us financially. What can I do? My younger sister, 14, is into Kpop a lot these days, and I'm really trying to support her interests. About 3 months ago, I bought her 3 huge photo card boxes of Stray Kids, Blackpink, etc. I didn't know what photo cards really were, but she told me it's a big deal, so I said, why not? Well, turns out they weren't real photo cards. They were Lomo cards. So she won't even look at them now, and she started getting albums and collecting the real ones. She is neglecting her schoolwork and ruining her sleep schedule to watch live concerts or just staying up for when a new song releases. Due to this, she's missing school and is sleeping almost all day. She's aggressive all the time and it's hard to talk with her. I had to go in and clean her room, feed her bird, etc. A few nights ago, she called me to her room to show me her photo cards she found on eBay. They were pretty expensive and my family isn't in the best economical state right now, so I just told her how she already has a bunch and doesn't even look at them. She gets mad, starts crying, calls me out on how much I buy books and how her photo cards are practically the same thing. I try to talk some sense into her and she kicks me out of her room. I get collecting things, but her need to collect photo cards is blowing way out of proportion too quickly. We got her 3 new albums a while back, and right after opening them, she asked, when can we get new ones? Now, fast forward to today where she convinced my parents to put some money into her bank account, saying she wants to spend some of it on food, hanging out with friends, and all that. She will easily drop a few $100s for some photo cards, and I feel nauseous because we aren't in a good state with money right now, and she doesn't get it. And I don't know what to do. I can't even talk with her without yelling or crying to me about how I don't support her interests. Does anyone have any advice? I'm really confused.
Am I the arsehole for telling my parents I won't pay to help my sister have a better life? Story time. So I was an only child for 14 years. And in all the years of living with them, they never believed in having nice things or treating me for any reason. Don't get me wrong, they had the money. My mum would always buy herself nice things. She always had like the latest designer bags. These little pieces of hair. And my dad was a really big golfer, so all the money would go on themselves. Anything I wanted, I was told no. Christmas and birthdays were for like practical gifts. I'm talking like notebooks, school supplies, new school shoes. I will never forget there was this one time I was maybe like 8 years old. I was playing out with my friends and the ice cream van came round. Literally all of the kids and all my friends were getting ice creams. When I went to my parents to ask if I could get one, they were like, you're not having one because ice cream isn't an essential, which that's an argument in itself. Instead, they suggested me going inside and getting some water if I needed to cool down. One of the neighbours even offered to pay for me, but my parents shut that down as well. So eventually, when I moved out, things started to change. They ended up having another child. She was a lot younger than me. And for her 5th birthday, they threw her a massive party. Bearing in mind, I had never ever had a birthday party. And my little sister Amy had a birthday party for every single birthday. So several months ago, my parents realised that obviously my TikTok was doing quite well. And they asked if I would be willing to buy my siblings these massive gifts. And I was like, Absolutely not, no. My parents were like, oh, you know, your dad didn't get his bonus this year, so we haven't been able to get them as much. And that's my problem. How? And these were easily like £200 to £300 gifts. And I was like, I don't really like getting people big gifts. And they were like, oh no, they're not going to be from you. They wanted me to buy my siblings presents with my money, give the presents to them, and then they would give the presents to my siblings. The dots ain't lining up here for me. So after that, we just outright refused. I got them lovely Christmas presents on my own back, and they didn't really ask for money up until the other day. They came to me and outright asked me for £500 so that they could take my siblings on a little trip. Bearing in mind, I'd never been invited on any of these trips. Again, I outright refused, and they blew up at me. They were calling me stingy, tight-fisted. And when I asked, like, what is the problem here? They said to me, well, we just can't understand why you wouldn't want to help us pay to give your siblings a better life. I said, well, there was no concern for me growing up and me wanting a better life. And if you want to do all of these lovely things for them, you can pay for it yourself. My parents then said I was being petty and I was punishing the wrong people. What do you think?
Am I in the wrong for refusing to donate my kidney to my dying sister because she got with my high school bully? I'm a 35-year-old gay man. When I was in high school, I was bullied severely by Darren. I won't go into the details, but it was really bad, past the point of typical high school douchebaggery. In my sophomore year, I made the mistake of coming out to one of my friends, who promptly spread this information around the school. Before this, Darren had targeted me for being unathletic and wearing glasses and had done this to a couple other kids as well. But after I was outed, it was only me, and it was only because of my sexuality. After high school, I moved away for college. I made friends, even got a boyfriend, and pretty much forgot about Darren until one Thanksgiving, my sister Ellie brought home her boyfriend, Darren. No joke, the first thing he said when he saw me was, "Damn, Ellie, you didn't tell me your brother's at FAG?" Ellie fucking laughed, as did my dad. I was kind of stunned, but I didn't yell or start a fight. I just got up and walked out. After the fact, my family tried to play it off as Darren was just joking because he was nervous meeting the family. And they told me that he and Ellie were serious, so I had to get over it. I just told them all that I wouldn't be attending any event where Darren was. In private, I told Ellie that I felt hurt that she date Darren, knowing what he did to me. She basically called me too sensitive and told me that she has a right to date who she likes. Which, yeah, she does. Since then, I've been putting distance between myself and my family, who seem to have readily accepted Darren into the fold. Recently, my mom reached out to tell me that Ellie was in the hospital and needed a kidney transplant. The rest of the family had been tested and none of us could donate. And my mom wanted me to get tested because I'm her full brother with a high likelihood of a match. The thing is, after all these years, Ellie is basically a stranger to me. If I were to do this, I'd have to drive 3 states back to the hometown, miss who knows how much work, and give a piece of my flesh, all for a woman who dated and eventually married the guy who made my high school days a living hell. I told my mom that I wouldn't be getting tested, and she freaked out at me over the phone. I quickly hung up on her, but before I did, I heard her call me vindictive and a monster for refusing to save my sister's life. I admit I feel pretty guilty about it, but am I in the wrong?
Am I wrong for checking my husband's dash cam footage on his car without his consent? I, 34 female, live with my husband, 37 male, and daughter, 7 female. My daughter and I recently went on a short trip out of state while my husband stayed as he had work and was supposed to look after our dog. On the last day of our trip, we got a call from my husband who was acting distraught and said that our dog Ellie had run away and that he could not find her. He claimed she just bolted away from him in the park into some bushes and he could not find her. Our dog is quite small, a mini poodle mix and almost 13 years old. She is still active, but it is really unlike her to run away from us, and I was suspicious but chose to believe my husband. My daughter and I were in grief, but we did not want to blame him. When we came home, he seemed surprisingly okay, unlike us. Ever since the pandemic, my husband started working from home, and he has always been annoyed at how much attention we gave Ellie and hated how Ellie begged to sit in our laps and his while he worked. A few days later, we got a call from an animal rescue in a neighboring state quite far from us that she had been found. I picked up the phone and it was on our landline, which we almost never use these days, but that was the contact on the microchip. I told my husband and he just said, "That is great, I'm so happy." But it felt kind of blunt and insincere. I said it was strange that she got so far and he responded that someone must have stolen her and then abandoned her. This made little sense to me as to why that would happen. When he was out drinking with his buddies, I copied the videos from his dash cam for the days I was away and saw that he had indeed taken Ellie far out of state and clearly dropped her in front of his car, thrown a frisbee-like object into a field, yelled "fetch," and drove off without her. I was livid and confronted him, and he just stupidly muttered how he dropped her there so she could find a farm and have a better life, and then the next day got really angry at me for viewing his dash cam and called me and my daughter an asshole. Am I wrong for refusing to lend my friend my house for her wedding after she asked me for a paternity test, resulting in her having to cancel the wedding? My friend Sandra and I have known each other for over 20 years. We are 30 and 32. Sandra is getting married to Andres and I'm married to Ian. Some relevant information. Andres and I originally come from the same country and even the same region. We share many characteristics. We both have very round faces, deep brown eyes, long straight black hair. If you didn't know better, you might assume we are siblings. I met Andres 6 years ago and introduced him to Sandra. He proposed 2 years ago. I own a beautiful property in my home country that I was ready to lend to Sandra and Andres for their wedding. My property is like a finca and has 10 rooms. Usually I would rent it out for weddings at a somewhat high price, but I was happy to give it to them at no cost, with the condition that they hire their own catering and have their guests strip their beds when they leave. The issue: 3 months ago, Sandra became more reclusive. She wouldn't answer my texts and we didn't meet up. 2 weeks ago, she appeared at my door with Andres. They sat us down, my husband included, and she said she suspected that my daughter is actually Andres' biological daughter and requested a paternity test for peace of mind. Oh gosh. I was so shocked that I couldn't say anything. My husband lost his temper and raised his voice, telling Sandra that she was being absolutely stupid. Sandra pointed out that my daughter looks like Andres. I explained that Andres and I look alike. She kept shaking her head, saying my daughter would look more like my husband and not like my exact copy. The evening ended poorly. I agreed to the test if they paid for it. The results came back last Friday, showing that Andres was not the father. We also did a test confirming that my husband is the father. Sandra cried and tried to hug me. I told her I didn't want to and that I didn't want to be friends with her for the time being. She kept saying her worries were justified and made a comment about women from your country being more likely to do that. Oh! She's slapping you in the face twice? In that moment, I was filled with anger. I told her she could forget about using the venue and that I didn't want her in my life anymore. She started crying, but I made her leave. Her mom and her have been texting me saying they can't find a new venue. I still said no. Wait, pause. You're still getting married to this man, even though you had suspicions that he cheated on you? 20 minutes ago, Sandra called me sobbing, saying that the wedding is off because of me. Delusion. Am I the asshole? Should I have let her use the venue at the usual price, or was what I did okay? Just to note, Andres was not chill about this. He seemed exasperated. He was quite upset and basically just agreed to this so she would drop it. I didn't include it because I did not see the relevance for the conflict between me and Sandra. I slept with my girlfriend's mom 2 years ago. I can't tell her because I know she'll dump me and it'll probably end her parents' marriage. So let me say this. I'm not the one in the wrong for this, but I have to say it somewhere. It's eating me alive. 2 years ago when I was 19, I met this woman while I was working as a personal trainer. She was in her 40s and looked like a 25-year-old. She took an interest in me and invited me out, and we slept together a few times. After one of our meetups, she said it was wrong for someone of her age to be with me because I was too young, and then she changed gyms. My girlfriend and I have been together for just under a year. She's amazing and I love her so much. 2 months ago, I met her family for the first time and it was a shock. Like, she took me to the house where I had hooked up with the woman and I felt like I was being pranked. Before I see her mom, it hits me. I have a type and they both fit that type, so it makes sense. I've been hooking up with a single mom and now I'm with her daughter. Then her mom and dad pop out and we both almost shit ourselves. I meet her parents. They've been married for 20 years. I realize I have been a married woman's boy toy and I feel incredibly ashamed. Later that week, her mom finds my number and tells me that I can never speak of what happened. She says that my girlfriend will hate me forever because I'll be the one who broke up her parents. So now I'm stuck keeping this secret. She invited me to spend Thanksgiving with her and her family since my family is 1,000 miles away and I already told her I don't plan on going home and I don't really have an excuse not to go. So now I'm going to have to sit there at a table and enjoy Thanksgiving dinner with the woman I had an affair with, her husband, and her daughter, whom I am now in love with.